Let's bring our friend Jason Chaffetz back onto the show. He's a Fox News contributor. He's also author of They Never Let a Crisis Go to Waste, Power Grab, and the Deep State. Jason Chaffetz, the Democrats aren't letting this crisis go to waste either in the House. Thanks for being back here on the show with us.
Well, Annie, always good to be with you. Listen, the Democrats are kind of snickering over there. And remember, Democrats don't have these problems because they're top-down, power-centric party of the elitists. Yeah. And if this was the Democrats, they'd get all in line like lemmings. And whereas Republicans believe in self-determination and freedom and liberty, and it's not a top-down, it's a bottom-up approach, and that's sort of the cost and price of freedom. So somehow, some way, our republic will survive. I agree with Newt Gingrich with one exception. I wouldn't bring in food. Make it as painful as possible. Just keep going until you get there.
I'm so glad that you said that. I heard him, I guess it might have been with Shannon Bream on Sunday when he was talking about this, and I think he talked about bringing in food 4 separate times in one point. And I'm like, are they really hungry? What is the deal? I mean, what's it like to be in that room at that point when you have no choice? You've got to pick somebody.
Well, the animosity's high. The tempers are flaring. Usually what happens is every week they get together, they bring in food. There's a little Chick-fil-A. Maybe there's some, Taco Bell, or there's something there to eat. And the nicer the food, the bigger the ask. But now I think the food budget is probably maxed out. And I just think you say, sorry, folks, we're going to sit here until we figure this out. The idea that they went on recess during the vacation or, during the weekend, I mean, that's what Joe Biden did. And the look was really bad. And I think for House Republicans, they got to stay there, stay in the room, figure it out. And they may have to go outside the body, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been a big proponent of somebody like Lee Zeldin or even Speaker Gingrich to come back in and say, hey, all right, I'll take the reins through the end of this Congress. No more of these shenanigans. And we have got to solve some of the biggest problems that we've faced. And they're coming up in rapid fire. You don't have much more time to waste.
I love that you said that. We have a YouTube poll every day on the Annie Frey YouTube channel, and today's is who will be the next Speaker of the House. Is it going to be a current representative or someone outside the House? Do you believe that there's somebody in the House right now that will satisfy 217 Republicans to vote for him?
I don't. I really don't. I think there's some very good qualified people. I think of Byron Donalds. I think of Jim Banks. I think of Mike Johnson out of Louisiana. I mean, there's some really good quality people who I think would be exceptional speakers. It's just everybody needs to take a deep breath and say, because they all think they should be the speaker, right?
Of course they do.
I mean, if you run for Congress, you got an ego. And everybody thinks they should be the speaker, but very few people can pull that off. I think a person like Lee Zeldin, who used to be in the body, he was the gubernatorial candidate for the Republicans in the New York race, but he's as close to Switzerland. Everybody likes him as it gets.
What is the I think it has probably become new information. Maybe people have learned in the last couple of weeks that the Speaker of the House doesn't actually have to be from within the House of Representatives. It seems to me like there might be some distinct advantages to making it a practice to not be in the House. What are your thoughts on it since you served there?
Well, I think we ask far too much of a speaker. We expect them to be chief fundraiser. We expect them to be the expert on the policy. And then we expect them to herd the cats and pass every vote and be conservative. And if you got more moderate, you want them to be more moderate. And I think that's an impossible task. The advantage a speaker from outside the body would have coming in now, which is under the Constitution allowed. I mean, the founders foreshadowed that this might be the case. Which is coming into play right now. They don't have to worry about their own reelection. And that takes a huge portion of what they got to do off the table, because if they can just worry about the body as a whole, the functioning of the government, then I think it's a distinct advantage. And at this point, may be the only person that can pull that off. And Lee Zeldin and Newt Gingrich are the best two names I can come up with.
We're speaking with Jason Chaffetz, who's a Fox News contributor. He's also host of Jason in the House podcast on Fox News Radio. I am curious. I would kind of like you to lay out, just from your experience of having served in the House of Representatives, being chairman of a high-profile committee. What are the mechanics of determining within the House what the Speaker's responsibilities are? You're saying there's too much on him. Does the caucus say we're going to change that up with the next Speaker? How's that get renovated?
Well, there's some constitutional duties and the function of the House, making sure the trains run on time and that, bills are brought to the floor and whatnot. But right now, the circle of power, because for the last 27 years in a row, we've done continuing resolutions and omnibus bills, that power is even more powerful. Instead of relying more on the committees and the chairman of those committees to actually get bills done. If they would focus more on that, which is conducive to what Matt Gaetz and others were asking for, then I think the body would be happier and they would be more effective and even move quicker. Now, remember, our founders didn't set up a glide path to make this the smoothest, easiest, fastest way to pass legislation. They would have structured it totally different. They wouldn't have two different bodies, 535 people, and but they set it up such that it was a difficult gauntlet to run. But the Speaker, I think their role has to be trimmed back.
So I want to ask you, we're speaking with Jason Chaffetz right now. I want to ask you about your thoughts on Matt Gaetz, because when he first engaged, he was saying he was going to do it. I believe the tweet from at then time Speaker McCarthy was "bring it on," and then Matt Gaetz was like, "Okay," and then there it went. When I listened to Matt Gaetz talking, the things that he was saying, I was like, I kind of agree with pretty much everything he's saying. These are the things that I want to see the House of Representatives doing. And we had the discussion, did he do the right thing? And if he did the right thing for the wrong reasons, is it still the right thing? I just want to know what your thoughts are on his actions and his timing.
I hate to have, no one person in the House is set up to be able to do this. I think the fundamental mistake that McCarthy and, quite frankly, the entire body made was allowing the call to vacate the chair to drop down to one person. I said at the time I thought it was a mistake to just allow one person to be able to do that. Democrats could have easily done that if they wanted to, and would have sent Republicans into chaos. But nevertheless, I think the number should be like 20 or 24, maybe 5% of the body. If they get together and then they want to revote on who the Speaker is, hey, do that. I am very sympathetic to the arguments that were made. They did promise that there was going to be regular order. They did promise they were going to vote on a balanced budget amendment. They did promise they were going to vote on term limits. They did a number of things and promises that obviously the Speaker couldn't produce. So ill-timed to be able to say, bring it on, because evidently, Kevin McCarthy thought he had to deal with the Democrats. The Democrats were going to come save him, which is pretty unsavory. And that didn't happen. And so I don't like the timing. I don't think you make this change in the middle of the game. I think at the beginning of the Congress, if you want to fight about it, as they were, great. And then you wait again till the next Congress if you feel like, hey, you didn't live up to what you said, and so we're not going to elect you again. But to do it in the middle of the game, really frustrating and very much disagree.
Yeah, it seems a little self-aggrandizing in that moment that it was more about what Matt Gaetz needed than what the body needed, although I do agree, like you said, sympathize with a lot of the arguments that were made. In your estimation, and I've heard reports of this as well, that Jim Jordan wasn't voted against as much as Matt Gaetz was voted against in the Jim Jordan's several rounds. I'm sure there are some people who would not prefer Jordan over McCarthy or whomever. But does this continue to be about Matt Gaetz in perpetuity? Because it seems like there's some people who aren't able to get over that hump and move forward.
Yeah, they have to get over that hump and move forward, because what I think they have a difficult time doing is every one of them voted for the rules package that allowed one person to vacate the chair.
That's very true.
Call for the vote to vacate the chair. So it's kind of hard to say, hey, I played by the rules. I didn't do anything outside the rules. You voted for those rules. You knew there was a change to those rules. I invoked that rule, and now you're mad at me? I mean, again, the House is set up so that one member can't just put a halt to it. It has to be a much broader group, and the red wave never did materialize. If we had the quote-unquote red wave, you wouldn't have a margin of 4.
Is there any possibility, last question before we let you go, Jason, we appreciate your time. Is there any possibility that after all of this dirty laundry gets taken care of very publicly, I mean, we are still over a year out from the election, and there are going to be about 1,000 million big stories that happen between the election and now. So people won't even remember this happened when they go to vote in November of 2024. But is it possible that this very ugly exercise does make the Republican Party stronger?
I hope so. I have an op-ed coming out with FoxNews.com tomorrow, and I basically say this is the price of freedom. They don't have these problems in China. They don't have these problems in others. But when you're bottom up, a voice of the people, and it gets a little messy sometimes, it's okay. And by the way, you make a good point too. I think from what I hear you saying, nobody's going to remember this. I mean, there are 500 people who care. At the end of the day, they're just not going to. I think people care. I don't want to overextend that, but 500 people that they're not going to switch their vote on who they're going to vote for their member of Congress because of some tussle back in October of 23.
That's ridiculous.
About who the speaker is going to be. You don't go to you're going to go to the ballot and vote for your member of Congress. You're going to go vote for the president and vice president. And this will be long in the rearview mirror. I hope.
Yeah, we could be months into World War III at that point, and nobody's going to be even thinking. I mean, I'm happy that the country now is waking up to the fact that we actually have a Speaker of the House. So that's it's a baptism by fire in Constitution. Amen. Yeah. Jason, thank you for your time today. We're really grateful for it.
Thanks, Annie.
We'll talk to you again soon. Jason Chaffetz is a Fox News contributor, author of the book, They Never Let a Crisis Go to Waste. I really encourage you to check that book out because it is about how basically the swamp operates. And there are a lot of really good things to pull from that you'll read his book and then you'll go, oh, now I understand that a little bit more with some details. His website is Jason in the House. And if you're a podcast person, go check out his podcast, which is also called Jason in the House.